Sometimes to really understand a country's history, a massive national trauma, you have to zoom in and look at just one family's story. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're diving into the search for Isis de Oliveira, a woman who disappeared during Brazil's military dictatorship. Her family's 7-year nightmare really tells the story of an entire country's pain, and their fight for answers, well, it all started with a single phone call.
Just listen to this quote. It's from Isis's mother, Felicia, and it just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It gets to the heart of the terror that families of the desaparecidos, the disappeared, were living with. There were no illusions about what was happening. From the absolute first moment, the fear wasn't just about her being in prison. It was about torture and all the other unimaginable things that came with it.
So, where does a nightmare like this even begin? Well, it wasn't with some official notice or a knock on the door from the police. No. It all started with a simple telephone call that was about to change the Oliveira family's life forever.
Okay, so here's how it happened. On January 30th, 1972, Isis was taken, imprisoned. It was 5 days later, on February 4th, that her parents finally got a call, and not from the authorities, but from one of her friends. That phone call was the last piece of information, official or otherwise, that the family would get for a very, very long time. An abyss of silence just opened up right in front of them.
And that one phone call, well, it kicked off a desperate 7-year search for Issa's mother, Felicia, and her father, Edmundo. This was the beginning of an absolutely exhausting journey through a system that was specifically designed to give them no answers at all.
Let's just walk through this timeline, because it's brutal. The search starts immediately, February 1972. Just a few months later, in August, they start hearing these unofficial whispers that Isis might already be dead. For the next 7 years, they file 5 writs of habeas corpus. That's a legal action basically demanding the government prove they're holding someone, and every single one is useless. It isn't until January of 1979 that the first real piece of public information finally comes out. 7 years, just silence.
And I mean, the sheer scale of what they did is just staggering. This wasn't them just making a few phone calls. They were constantly on the road, traveling between Sao Paulo and Rio. They were physically going to every security agency, every prison, every hospital, every cemetery, even churches. They were knocking on every single door, trying to talk to anyone who might listen, whether they were military or civilian police. It was a relentless, all-consuming search. In all of this constant stress and heartbreak, it took a devastating personal toll. During these 7 years, Isis's father had 2 serious heart attacks. You can see how the stress and the pain were literally breaking the family apart, both physically and emotionally. But no matter where they turned, no matter whose door they knocked on, they were met with the exact same thing, a cruel, calculated wall of official silence from the state.
And this is where you really see the cruelty of the strategy. Officially, the government's position was just total denial. They acted like they'd never even heard of Isis. But unofficially, through back channels, through whispered conversations, Felicia would get these horrifying little fragments that Isis was moved to a hospital for kidney problems, that she died in August. It was a form of psychological torture, feeding them these bits of information while publicly denying everything.
And get this is where it gets truly, unbelievably paradoxical. While the family is filing all these legal actions to just find Isis, the government, the same government that denies having her, is filing 6 different legal actions against her for political activism. Think about that. They are actively prosecuting a person they claim to know nothing about. It's a complete legal twilight zone. So you might be asking, why keep filing these legal actions if they were useless? Well, Felicia explains it perfectly right here. It was never about actually winning in court. They knew that was impossible. It was about signaling. It was their way of telling the authorities, we know what you did. We're not going away, and we are watching you. It was an incredible act of defiance. Now, to really get why their legal efforts were technically useless, you have to know about this thing called AI-5. That's Institutional Act Number 5. This was a decree that basically gave the dictatorship absolute power. It suspended habeas corpus for any political crimes, it shut down Congress, it basically legalized state repression. The state could arrest, torture, and even kill people with absolutely no legal consequences. This was the foundation of the terror. So after 7 long years of fighting against this impenetrable wall of silence, a crack finally appeared. But the confirmation it brought, well, it was the family's absolute worst fear come to life.
This was the moment. January 20th, 1979. A newspaper in Sao Paulo publishes a story. An anonymous general has leaked a list of political prisoners who were confirmed to have been killed, and on that list is the name Isis de Oliveira. Just imagine that, after 7 years of this private, agonizing struggle, their family's tragedy is suddenly public, confirmed for everyone to see in black and white.
I mean, just think about the tragic irony in that statement. The most official confirmation a family receives about their own daughter's murder at the hands of the state comes from an unnamed source in a newspaper, not from the government, not from the courts, but from a leak to the press.
So this grim confirmation, it changed everything. The family's mission wasn't just about finding ISIS anymore. Now it was about finding truth. It was about finding accountability. It was about finding justice.
And with this newspaper article in hand, they had a whole new strategy. Felicia joined a state amnesty committee, and its leader had a brilliant plan. They were going to use the article itself as a legal tool. The idea was to subpoena the reporter, force them to reveal the name of the general who leaked the list, and then subpoena the general. The hope was to finally get a state official on the record, in a courtroom, and shatter that official wall of silence for good.
But here's the thing. Even with this new glimmer of hope, Felicia was incredibly realistic about the situation. She understood the immense danger they were still in. As she says here, democracy, full democracy, isn't assured yet. The dictatorship was getting weaker, but it wasn't gone. She knew that trying to get full justice, to actually make the torturers pay, was still a very, very dangerous goal.
So because it was so dangerous, her immediate goal was something much more fundamental. What she wanted was just an official confirmation. She needed to end the cruel legal limbo the state had put her family in. As she put it, her daughter was legally neither dead nor living. More than anything else, the family just wanted an official death certificate, a simple piece of paper from the state acknowledging what it had done.
And that really leaves us with this final, powerful question, built from Felicia's own words. She says, I do want justice, but how do you find it? How do you hold powerful people accountable for their crimes when the system itself is still so fragile? When the very people who committed those crimes might still be in power? It's a question that families like the Oliveiras, and honestly, entire nations, are still struggling with to this very day.